Hey everyone, welcome back to the realm. I'll be your guide beyond Waking Realm. Today, we're diving into the meaning behind the emotional home of Kingdom Hearts. When most people think about Kingdom Hearts, they usually think about Sora's optimism, Riku's fall into darkness, or the journey across different worlds. But before the Keyblades, before the Heartless, before Destiny tore everything apart, there was Destiny Islands. 3 children staring at the horizon, wondering what existed beyond the world they already knew. And in many ways, Kairi represents the emotional heart of that world. Not through power, not through combat, but through memory, connection, warmth, and the feeling of home. Because while Sora represents innocence and Riku represents the fear of being left behind, Kairi represents something much quieter. She represents the part of childhood we spend the rest of our lives trying to return to. The emotional center of the trio. One of the most interesting things about Kairi in the first Kingdom Hearts is that despite having less screen time than Sora, or Riku, her presence emotionally affects almost every major moment in the game. Destiny Islands itself feels different because of her. When the trio are together, the world feels warm, safe, simple. There's this softness to the opening hours of Kingdom Hearts that the series honestly never fully recreates again. Not because the worlds become darker, but because childhood itself disappears, and Kairi represents that childhood innocence in its purest emotional form. She's the calmness before separation, the emotional grounding that keeps both Sora and Riku connected to who they used to be. Even the raft itself symbolizes this. At first, it feels exciting. A childish dream. 3 friends imagining a future beyond the island. But looking back on it now, the raft almost feels tragic because none of them understand that once they leave Destiny Islands, their lives are never going to be simple again. Destiny Islands and the fear of change. And honestly, I think that's what makes Destiny Islands so emotionally powerful in Kingdom Hearts 1. It's not just a location, it's a memory, it's nostalgia. It's that feeling of looking back at a period in your life that felt safe. Before responsibilities, loss, identity, crisis, or separation entered your world. The trio are standing on the edge of change without fully realizing it, and Kairi almost feels like the emotional embodiment of that fleeting moment. There's a reason the Papu Fruit scene became so iconic, not because it was just romantic, but because it represented permanence, a desire to stay connected, even when life eventually pulls people apart. And I think that's something almost everyone can relate to. Wanting to believe the people closest to you now will always stay close forever. Wanting to believe childhood can last just a little bit longer, but Kingdom Hearts 1 quietly tells us something painful. It can't. And once the islands fall, the trio begin emotionally drifting apart almost immediately. Kairi as memory. What makes Kairi fascinating in Kingdom Hearts 1 is that physically, she spends a large proportion of the story absent, unconscious, separated, lost, and yet emotionally, She's everywhere. Sora constantly moves forward because of her memory, not just romantically, emotionally, psychologically. Kairi becomes a symbol of identity itself, a reminder of who Sora was before the worlds became complicated. And that becomes most obvious during Hollow Bastion. Because Hollow Bastion is where Sora loses almost everything. His Keyblade, his confidence, his role as the chosen hero, and eventually, even his own body. When Sora sacrifices himself to restore Kairi's heart, he literally loses his humanity. And what restores him? Not power, not strength, not destiny. Kairi. Her connection to him brings him back. And honestly, that moment perfectly captures what Kairi represents throughout the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 1. She reminds people who they are. Riku's, Sora, and Kairi's role between them. One thing I've always found interesting is how differently Sora and Riku emotionally respond to Kairi. For Sora, Kairi represents emotional comfort, connection, warmth. But for Riku, Kairi unintentionally becomes tied to his fear of abandonment, his fear of being replaced, forgotten, left behind. And I think that's part of what makes Destiny Island's trio feels surprisingly human. Because the emotional imbalance starts before the worlds even collapse. Sora and Kairi naturally gravitate toward emotional openness, while Riku isolates himself emotionally through strength and independence. And once darkness enters the picture, those insecurities explode. But Kairi herself never becomes corrupted by that darkness. Instead, she remains symbolic of the emotional light both boys are subconsciously trying to return to. Not perfection, not romance, but emotional home. Why Kairi feels distant in Kingdom Hearts 1. And honestly, I think part of why Kairi feels so emotionally unique in the first game is because she almost feels dreamlike, distant, untouchable, like a memory you're trying to hold on to before it fades away. There's this melancholic feeling surrounding her thoughts in Kingdom Hearts, even during peaceful scenes, because subconsciously, the player already understands something the trio doesn't. Things are changing. Childhood is ending, and eventually, they're going to become different people. That's why the ending of Kingdom Hearts 1 still hits emotionally all these years later. Not because Sora and Kairi are separated physically, but because the game understands something universal. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is realizing you can never fully return to the emotional simplicity of who you once were. And Kairi represents that lost simplicity better than almost any character in the series. The fundamental core. That's why when I think about Kairi in Kingdom Hearts, I don't think about action scenes or power scaling or even lore. I think about warmth. I think about sunsets on Destiny Islands, the sound of waves hitting the shore, 3 children building a raft, believing the future would always stay bright. Because before Kingdom Hearts became a story about destiny, darkness, and saving worlds, it was a story about connection, and Kairi represented the emotional reason those connections mattered in the first place. Before the fall, before separation, before everything changed. And maybe that's why the original Kingdom Hearts still feels so special after all these years. Because deep down, I think a part of us are still trying to return to Destiny Islands too. The journey that we set off originally when we were little kids, adults, teenagers, all in that moment when the trio was like, yeah, we're building this raft, we're leaving for an adventure. Thinking about pop culture references of movie like Treasure Island and Treasure Planet. I think that we were always off to set sail to our adventures, not knowing that in that process, adventure brings stress, adult responsibilities, separation, and once we look back, we kind of want to reminisce and want to return back to everything where once things was peaceful, stress-free, and not having to make a decision that would lead up to consequences in the near future. And that return trip to Destiny Islands moving forward was very joyful and really made us feel warm on the inside once everyone was back together. If you've been enjoying the series, I've got a Ko-fi link below. No pressure, just if you want to support the channel. And to you beautiful people, this is where I'll leave us off. Stay true to yourselves, love yourself. It's a hard world out there. Heavy on the hard world out there. I'm just over here absorbing the ambiance of this moment, warming up my childhood heart. Vibe with me as I'm ending this. It's just there for anyone who wants to support what I'm building here.